this creature is referred to as a Huldra. I believe it's like Huldra. I'm not gonna try though. In Swedish folklore, she's called a skogsro, and she is known by multiple other names as well. It really just depends on where you are in Scandinavia. She can also be referred to as a member of the Huldra folk or the hog folk. The two versions that I will be referring to most today are the Huldra and the Skogsro. And those two names are very, very fun to say, like properly. They're really fun. They just kind of like roll off the tongue. In some of these versions of the story, especially from Norway, she's dressed as a dairy maid or a farm girl, and the farm outfits are usually depicted as red or green. It's thought that the red color symbolizes her sensuality, and the green color symbolizes the forest and nature, the very domain where she hides until she wants to be seen. So another fact is that she is invisible until she wants you to see her. So, as beautiful and captivating as she is, she won't show you her entire body right away. She will often draw you in, only showing the front of her body while hiding behind a tree, a rock, or other large object. And this is for a really specific reason. While she looks like a woman from the front, she always has a distinguishing feature which gives away her true identity. Her back is actually concave and nothing but a hollowed out, rotten tree trunk. Creepy, right? And then, in addition to being made of wood, the Huldra also has a very distinctive tail, which she will always try and hide underneath her clothing or with her long hair, or just by standing behind a tree or something. So in Norwegian stories, she has the tail of a cow. In Sweden, she may have the tail of a fox or a horse tail instead. And though the differing tails obviously change her look, there isn't much of a difference between the two versions. The Huldra also has a very unique ability. She has multiple abilities, but one of her abilities is kind of cool, but I guess it's more along the lines of pretty creepy, actually. She possesses shape-shifting abilities. She can transform herself into a man's wife or girlfriend, taking on their full appearance and luring men in that way. So she will just appear in the middle of the woods as a man's wife, and of course, he's going to go to her. But really, it's just the Huldra. She's also able to turn herself into any animal of the forest, or even turn herself into a tree. And from what I understand, there are different versions in terms of where you find the Huldras, but they are all the same. Like, some of them are guardians of the water, some of caves and other underground places, and then we have the Huldra, who are found in forests as well as mountains, who are most often, especially in Norway, seen as cow farmers, or I guess more like cow herders. So, what happens if you, or when you do run into a Huldra? Several different things can happen. Encounters with this creature can and do vary greatly, and again, it all depends on how you treat her. It can go very well, but it can also go was so taken aback by her beauty that he loses his breath. It's not until she gets close enough that he sees she has a fox's tail sticking out from underneath her clothing. Rather than showing his shock or the fact that he was taken aback, he chooses to be polite and simply says, "Milady, I see that your petticoat shows below your skirt." And from the sounds of it, Huldras are somewhat embarrassed by their tails, turns into an old, ugly hag, like her true form when not hidden by her magical beauty. This man is disgusted by what she looks like, but the Huldra forces him to marry her still. Like, oh, how the tides have turned. So, they get married, and like most versions of the Huldra tell, during the wedding ceremony, her tail falls off, and then they are married. They're stuck together. Her husband treats her really unkindly because of her ugliness, but surprisingly, she continues to treat him with love and respect. But one day, she gets really sick of his cruel attitude towards her, and in order to make her husband stop treating her like that, she shows off her inhuman strength. She shows him that she is able to bend fire-hot metal horseshoes with her bare hands. And when her husband sees how strong she is, and the fact that she is like immune to fire, he begins treating her with the utmost respect. So there's also stories saying that she's so strong that she can literally lift grown fir trees with just her bare hands. So this woman is a beast, and you don't want to mess with her. But hold on, I mean, that's very cool and very impressive if she could lift grown trees, but isn't that a normal thing in Scotland, like in the Highland Games? Don't people lift actual trees up and carry them? So it's impressive, but it's not that impressive. Like, humans can do it too. Okay, so the Huldra is also well known for helping charcoal burners. So join giblets and she is satisfied, she will often reward him afterwards. But these rewards only happen if the man remains respectful, especially after seeing her tail. For instance, if the man is a hunter, it's said that she would blow on his rifle, making it so that he would never miss a shot again. The rifle will have been blessed by her, so the hunter and his family will never go hungry again. Or sometimes she would just show a man straight to a sleeping bear or elk so he could take them for food. And let's just ignore the fact that, yeah, she's making sure that this man and his family will never go hungry. But the fact that he has a family probably means that he had a wife and you just slept with him. Yeah, home wrecker. After a weird sexual forest encounter, she can ensure that you will always have food, but, or like other good things. But if that encounter happened to go badly, as in if you mention her tail in a negative way, or you insulted her, or unfortunately, if she just didn't really enjoy the encounter, it said that she could and would make you wander the forest until you went insane or until you starved and died. So, like I said, she can be good, she can be evil, she can be malicious, and she can be just completely whacked or some this really happened at a real wedding long, long ago. Did the poor bride's family, people really thought that they were weird forest creatures? I don't know. Anyways, where exactly did the Huldra originate, right? This is pretty interesting. The story goes that God decided to visit a mortal human woman one day. This woman had many children, and on this particular day, she had only bathed half of her children when God arrived to her home. He asked to see her children, and she was embarrassed that only half of her kids were clean and wearing fresh clothing. And she didn't want God meeting the ones who hadn't bathed yet. So she hid her dirty children in another part of the house and only introduced the clean ones. God, of course, knew that she had hidden half of her children from him, and he got so angry with her for doing this that he cursed her, saying that her dirty children would continue to be hidden from all of mankind forever. And it was her children, these children, who became the Huldras, or the hidden people. And my only question is, why would God punish the poor children? It wasn't their fault that the mom only bathed half of them. That's really, really stupid. I'm sorry. But this is really interesting because it was the descendants of that woman's children who continued forever to be hidden in the forests. And this is why it's said that Huldras are so keen on luring young men into their world and into their underground homes to marry them and be with them. It's because they want new bloodlines. Consent. Throughout history, beliefs in the Huldra were so strong in Scandinavia that, as I said, she was as real to people then as other forest threats like bears are to us. The church was so concerned that people would develop relationships with Huldras and other spirit people that Scandinavian governments literally created new, very real laws prohibiting people from these relationships. And men did indeed face persecution for being involved with hydras, no, Huldras. And I just need to know, how was that proven? That's another one of those crazy things, you couldn't prove witchcraft either, but people were persecuted for it. But because they were so real, families, especially cattle farmers, paid only the highest respect to the Huldras, especially in the mountains of Norway. It's said that in the late fall, as cow farmers were preparing to bring their cows down off of the mountains and back to their main farm, they would also prepare to receive the Huldra as well as her cows. So cows were moved off of the mountains before winter because it was just too cold for them to be up there in those months. So as farmers brought their cows down, they would leave food and drink out for the Huldra. And this was a polite invitation for the Huldra to take up residence in their home during the winter signal that the Huldra was welcome to house her cows in that barn during the winter, and that she was welcome in their home. And again, this is just so crazy to me because, as I said, the belief in this creature was so real that farmers were willing to not let, I don't know, one or two of their cows stay in a stall, potentially facing death in the winter. Like, that's crazy. They left room for invisible cows. Because I guess if you didn't do this, people feared her wrath. And the Huldra's cows were said to be this ancient breed of cow and were often blue colored, which I just thought was really cool. And I believe if you welcomed her and her cows, it was said that the Huldra would bless your cows, ensuring that they would produce a lot of meat and milk for you and your family. So again, it's so interesting because there's such a big theme of food and survival when it comes to the Huldra. But, again, there was also apparently a danger of the Huldra stealing your cows. So if she had an eye, if she had her eyes, if she was looking at one of your cattle, or if one of your cows were acting strange or something, it was believed that a Huldra may have been trying to take them for herself. So farmers were warned not to occupy their cow pastures on certain dates as well. Apparently, on these dates, the field then belonged to the Huldra and her invisible cows. Also, it was dangerous to throw dirty water, like dirty washing water, out into your cow fields or cow pastures, because a Huldra and her cows could be standing there, and if you were to hit her with your dirty washing water, you could invoke her wrath. So it was just a superstition not to throw your water there. Now, there are a number of different ways to protect yourself from a Huldra. The first is to simply avoid being lured in by her. So Huldras may offer humans enticing gifts such as food, treasure, or sex. And if you simply refuse these gifts in a polite manner, it's said that she will not have any control over you. If, however, a Huldra has lured you or a loved one in, the most effective physical defense is steel. So hitting a Huldra with steel, or just throwing it within their vicinity, will render a Huldra or a creature like them weak, useless, and unable to use their powers. Another effective safeguard is to apparently yell Jesus at them or show her a cross. And this works because the Huldras apparently fear Christianity, which I guess is also why they couldn't eat blessed food at weddings, I'm assuming. So this, to me anyway, was such an interesting story.